How's it going, everybody? Welcome to a brand new travel photography vlog. Here we are at a brand new location, at least new to you guys. This place I've been here a few times already and have got some pretty cool shots. I'll throw some of those up on the screen for you guys to check out real quick. As you can see, one of the main reasons I come here is this really interesting rock formation on the shoreline there. I don't know if it's a sea stack or whatever you would classify it as. It's just really cool, makes for a nice subject. And there's, of course, great sunset views here with it being right along the edge of the lake. And this is Sheridan Bay Park, just near Dunkirk, New York. And one of the other reasons I like coming here is for the great astrophotography opportunities. And there are some relatively darker skies here than near where I live. So it's got, kind of the best of both worlds. It's not the darkest sky you could ask for, but it's good enough. And the last time I came here for Astro, I got this shot. As you could probably tell, the star trails are not as long as they should be, and that was mainly the result of some really bad luck. I had taken about 150 photos that I was going to stack to get really long star trails, but something happened when I went to change a camera setting last minute without just letting the camera roll, and lo and behold, when I did that, I must have messed up the focus somehow, and all 150 shots completely out of focus, and I stayed out here in the dark for 2+ hours for pretty much nothing. I mean, the shot still looks pretty good, but it could have been way better. So today's a little bit of a redemption. We've got some clear skies. Sorry about the train horn, but we got some clear skies. The only downside is there is a full moon tonight, and I don't feel like waiting until the new moon, which is I think in like a week and a half or so. Last time I was here was like a half moon, and it wasn't so bad. It does help to kind of light our foreground a little bit. And it shouldn't really wash out the stars too much, and the moon I don't think will be in our shot until the time we're pretty much getting ready to leave anyways, around midnight, closer to 1 a.m. So I'm gonna vlog this. Haven't done a vlog in a while, so I want to film one. Been eager to film one. I was gonna use my other small camera to film while I have this camera locked off taking shots, but I'm gonna have to use my phone today because I forgot to bring the SD card for it because I am stupid. But these things happen, right? So we're gonna make it work, and I hope you guys are going to enjoy this, and let's hopefully try to get a really nice shot. I'm going to try to aim my camera a little bit towards the North Star to see if we can get that full star wheel. This is a shot that I've been wanting to get for years now, and I've just never been able to execute. I just want a full star wheel shot pointing towards the North Star. Let's see if we can make it happen, and I'll walk you guys through the entire process of how to get a shot just like that. Alright, so I'm using my camera monitor here for a little bit of light on me because it is pretty dark, but it's late blue hour, probably into twilight now, according to my Photo Pills app. Should have gotten here a little earlier so I had a little bit more light to work with while I'm setting up my blue hour shot. But we're just capturing some frames right now of the composition that I want with that rock feature in the foreground. And we're doing a blue hour shot mainly because we want like a low ISO foreground to blend in with our star trails. You don't really have to do that. I just find it makes for a better looking photo, a little bit more higher quality, a little less noise, a little bit more detailed foreground. So if you can get like a late blue hour shot to blend in with your star trails, I think that's probably the best thing to do. And then any color differences, you can always just mess with some tone curves, which I'll show you guys in Photoshop when we get to the editing point. But right now we're doing a 15-second exposure at f11, ISO 200, and we're just taking some pretty standard shots. We've got that rock formation in there, and we got some plenty Canadian geese joining us too. I think there's like there's probably about 8 of them here, about 4 pairs, kind of cool. Oh, and really quickly, this is just on the back of the camera what the composition looks like. They're just honking away. Alright, so it is, I think, almost 10:30 right now, and I've got to use the illumination feature on my phone camera here, but the moon is out. It is a full moon. I knew that going into this, that the full moon might not give us the most optimal conditions for shooting star trails. because it might wash out the sky a little bit. So I've been messing with the ISO levels. I started at 2000, which is what I did last time when we had a quarter moon, or half moon roughly. And I've been going down to 16 and then to 1250, making sure that the stars still look bright, but towards the horizon and, you know, where the moon is shining on, like on the beach and on the rock, you know, the brightness in those areas isn't like overpowered. And when you look at the photos of the camera, it looks like it's almost like sunrise, because you can actually see shadows being cast from the tree line behind us. So it's actually kind of cool. But right now, again, it's full dark, and I'm just, you know, waiting a little longer, maybe, you know, because full dark is at like 10:14, so I'm gonna go to like 10:30 and maybe start doing our shots then, and it'll be about an hour and 40 minutes, I think, is gonna be how long we need to go to get 200 photos for star trails. And I don't have a complete star wheel. I would have to point the camera a little bit higher than I would have liked to, which is fine, but that should almost give us a complete wheel, I'm thinking, because last time I did 22 in that one photo, and that was actually surprisingly far. So I think 22 or 200 total shots should be enough. So yeah. All right, so we are now in the truck, and the timer is going an hour and 40 minutes, or 100 minutes total. That is 200 instances of 30-second shots. And I'll explain really quickly the reasoning behind doing 30 seconds is that within that 30-second shutter, the Earth rotates just enough so that the stars trail just a little bit in the frame. If I wanted just pictures of the stars, maybe I was shooting the Milky Way and I wanted the stars to look more like actual stars, you know, finite little points that aren't elongated, you would do a slower shutter speed. But since the goal of this image, the final image, is to have stars trail throughout the entire photo, we want to drag out that shutter speed a little bit longer. And I was messing around with my ISO, and there's that train again. I was messing around with my ISO because last time I was doing 2000, but, you know, there are some faint clouds on the distant horizon, more towards the horizon, so they're not really blocking a lot of our stars, thankfully. But at 2000 ISO, especially with our moonlit foreground, I felt like it was maybe washing the sky out a little bit too much, so I went to 1600. It's like, okay, that looks pretty good. Then I went down to 1250 ISO. It's like, that looks a little bit better. Went down to 1000. No noticeable difference there. So I figured I would go with 1250 just because, you know, when I blow it up on a monitor, I might get a little bit more detail at 1250 without blowing things out too much. So I feel like 1250 was like the perfect medium. I could be wrong. It's my first time shooting star trails with a full moon, which again, if you can help it, wait till the moon's at least half. At least the moon isn't risen at this time of night, or it's a new moon. That's always the best general rule of thumb. And I also just got a notification on my phone that there is an aurora chance within the next hour, and my camera is pointed north relatively, so I might stay a little bit longer and do some long exposures at higher ISOs and see maybe if I can get the aurora over the lake, because there has been a lot of solar activity. We typically wouldn't see aurora this far south of the Arctic Circle. But we are starting to see them a lot more. Higher powered solar storms, they do reach a little bit further south into the northern U.S. And in the past couple weeks, I haven't been able to photograph it, but I've been seeing other people in the community locally get cool photos of the aurora over Letchworth and Lake Ontario. So maybe we'll get lucky. I'm not really holding out for anything. I just got the notification. I thought it might be cool. And yeah, 200 stacked stars. And yeah, now we just throw on a YouTube video and we wait. Welcome everybody back to the studio. It is time to go over the photos that we got and basically show you guys how we put together the final result from our time at Sheridan Bay Park shooting star trails. And I've got some pretty exciting news. If you guys saw that little time lapse that I showed just before this segment, you might have seen a faint green flash on the horizon in the sky, and that was because we were actually able to photograph the aurora borealis over the lake or very, very southern parts of Canada, which, still to this day, it is about maybe 2 weeks later since I filmed that in the field portion. I still can't believe how incredibly lucky I got to be in the right place at the right time. I didn't realize how good of a chance a 10% chance was going to be, because that's ultimately the percentage chance that we had to see it according to the Aurora app that I have on my phone. And with increased solar activity over the next couple years, if you're into astrophotography, there's an app I would definitely recommend getting, as it seems to be pretty accurate in terms of determining your chances of seeing auroras in whatever locations you might be in. And it does give you like a decent lead time, about 30-minute lead time, to be able to see what the percentage chances are in your particular area. So first thing I want to do is actually go into Lightroom, and we're going to take a look at all of the star trail photos. So here we are in Lightroom, and as you can see, we are looking at one of the base blue hour shots for our foreground. Now, this is something I would recommend a lot of people get in the habit of doing when you are going to do astrophotography, is to try to get there for blue hour, late blue hour, right before it is full dark, so you can get a relatively low ISO, less noisy foreground to be able then to blend in with your night sky. Now, with the landscape that we have here in front of us, we have a lot of trees that break the horizon, and that can make blending a little bit more difficult. So keep that in mind if you're shooting mountains or rolling hills, whatever it may be, where everything is really flat and far away. It's a lot easier to blend than it is blending in trees like this, although you could definitely try and pull it off. Now, one thing we got lucky with, and maybe lucky is not the right word, but on this particular evening, we did have a full moon, which means the landscape in which we were shooting was moonlit. And if I go to one of these frames here, and you can actually see my shadow here down in the bottom left from the moon, and this is ISO 1250 at 26 mils for f4 with 30-second exposure. And you can see, our foreground is decently lit because of, again, the moonlight. So that kind of took away the need, for the most part, to actually need a blue hour blend, because our foreground did have a decent amount of light on it. And this photo here is the first photo that I actually ended up using for our star trails. And then we ended up having, I think, 195 final images to be able to stack together, because I think I did the math a little bit wrong. It would have been an hour 40 exactly, but you have to take into account that in between shutters, there's about a 1 or 2 second delay where the camera processes the photo really quick and then starts the next exposure. So it's not, exactly 140 or hour and 40 minutes. It probably maybe been like an hour and 50 minutes just to play it safe, to get that even 200 or maybe a little over, right? But yeah, 5 photos isn't going to make a big difference here. So what I ended up doing is in Lightroom, anyways, and there's an important nuance that I want to bring up that is going to be relevant for some people depending on what lens you have, and we'll talk about that in a moment. I didn't even know this until recently when I edited that first star trail photo that I showed you guys at the beginning of the video. And this is something you're going to really want to pay attention to, because it's so dumb at the same time, but it's just like a little thing that could get you out of nowhere if you're not already thinking about it. But yeah, so this is what all the photos look like. I edited them in Lightroom, and did a blanket edit over all of them. Some of them aren't loading in. The edits aren't loading in on some of these, but yeah, there they go. So, I went through, edited one to how I liked it, messed with the white balance and the exposure, all those things, added some dehaze to get a clearer sky. And you can see we did get some clouds that ended up rolling in towards the later part of the night. And if we go towards the end, you can start to again see that faint green glow on the horizon, especially in these last few frames here. And now, another thing too, I'm going on several tangents, but it was such an incredible night, so much fun And I kind of wish I had done things a little bit differently, and I'll explain. So as you can see here, with the photo slightly edited like it is, the aurora appears, very prominent, at least as prominent as you could get on a night with a full moon as far south as we are. This is not what it looked like at all on the back of my camera when I came down to get my camera once the star trails had completed. This is what the photo looked like directly out of camera, right? As you can see, things look very hazy because there was, my lens had fogged up because of condensation, and the pictures were slightly overexposed at 1250 ISO, which is why I'm so glad I didn't do 2000 ISO at least, and I erred on the side of caution and went down to 1250. But yeah, this is what it looks like with some editing. The dehaze really did a number on that that fog that formed on the lens, and dropping the exposure a whole stop, and doing some other adjustments, as you can see there on the right side, really brought the photos back. And I didn't stay longer to shoot more aurora photos because, like I said, you saw how that photo looked, right? When I looked at this on a dimly lit LCD screen on the back, or LED screen on the back of the Z7, which already isn't that great to begin with, I really could not see any of the green glow whatsoever. So I was like, yeah, there's no way we got any aurora photos, right? But lo and behold, we actually ended up doing it. So I mean, it is what it is, right? I'm still very glad and grateful that I got to photograph it, even for just a little bit here in some of these last 20, 30 frames. You can see it in that time lapse. But yeah. Now, the other thing I wanted to talk about is, I was saying about certain lenses for star trails, specifically, really only pertains to doing star trails. So I have it's the only lens that I have for my Z7 is the kit lens. It is the 24-70. And if I go down to, where would that be? Right here. So yeah, in lens correction, it is the 24-70 millimeter f4s. Now, this little message right here is really, really bad for some people who want to do star trails or astrophotography, mainly just star trails. It says this raw file contains a built-in lens profile for correcting distortion, chromatic aberration, all that stuff. Now, normally in standard landscape photography, this would be perfectly fine. You wouldn't even think of looking at this. The problem then comes though when you do astrophotography, and for some reason Lightroom doesn't give you the opportunity to turn this off is mind-boggling, while other softwares do. Other third-party free softwares will let you turn this feature off, is mind-blowing, especially if they're charging 60 some odd dollars a month is what I paid for the Adobe Suite. And the fact that you can't turn this off is, like I said, it's just mind-boggling that you can't do that. But a program like Raw Therapy can do it for free. Now, why does this matter? Because when you stack all of these photos, if I were to export all of these as 8-bit TIFFs and send them to Photoshop to open, right? And then export them all to TIFFs to a folder, then load them into Photoshop as a stack, which is what you're supposed to do for star trails, and I'll explain that in a little bit in more detail. But once you blend all the photos together and you flatten everything, you start to see weird geometrical lines all over the photo, and that is because you've taken so many photos that have this correction applied to them already, and they compound on top of each other to create weird lines. It has some weird term for it. I'll throw it up on the screen right now, and show an example, like a stock photo, an example of what that looks like, right? There was an article via F-Stoppers that I read, and I'll link that in the description. Love F-Stoppers, and they had a great article explaining why this is, what causes it, and how to fix it, and that's how I found Raw Therapy. And also, apparently, Capture One, which is something I'm also doing a free trial of right now. You can see this at the bottom of my screen. Capture One also allows you to take off the built-in lens correction, which is fantastic. So I've been using Capture One and Raw Therapy. I think Capture One is a lot better to use. It has a more user-friendly interface. I think it's a lot more simple to use, and I like Capture One better than I like Raw Therapy, but then again, you do have to pay for Capture One. But Raw Therapy is a great free option to use to do that. It's just going to take a little bit of a learning curve. And, it's different when you're so used to Lightroom, right? Everything looks completely alien on those other softwares. But yeah, so that ended up being a major issue. And, I had to process everything in Raw Therapy or Capture One, export them to Photoshop. And that brings us to this image here, which is the final result, which I've titled Timeless Shores, because, you've got the stars, the aurora, things that have existed on this view for millions of years, right? Gracing this beautiful scene here on the shore of Lake Erie, right? With this rock pillar, sea stack, whatever you want to call it. So how do you get to this point? So once you take all of your photos, right, all consecutive 200 shots or however many you did, what you're going to do is export them from Capture One, Raw Therapy, Lightroom, whatever, and you're going to send them to a file, or a folder rather, on your desktop. And I would just title it like Star Trail Temp, whatever, for temporary, like whatever you want to title it, just Star Trails. Send them all there as a TIFF file. I'd recommend doing TIFFs, or you could do JPEGs. If you don't plan on pushing those Star Trails a lot, you can do JPEGs. They'll save on space, and if your computer isn't the greatest, it'll definitely help speed things up. But I would recommend TIFFs, 8-bit TIFFs or 16 bits, however hard you want to go on it. I think 8 bits would probably be fine for Star Trails, but you'll send them all to that folder. Lightroom will export them all. It'll take a little while, 200 photos or how many you've shot. And then you're going to load those files into a stack. So you're going to go up to Photoshop, you're going to go File, Scripts, and you're going to hit Load Files into a stack, and then you're going to basically hit the Browse button, select the folder that has all those TIFFs in it, and then drop them all in here, select them all, Control A, select them all, and then hit OK, and, it'll load them all into a thing, into a stack, in a new Photoshop document, and then you're going to select all of those photos, and you are going to choose the blending mode and change it to lighten. And what lighten is going to do is it's going to bring out everything that is 50% gray or higher. So everything like from 50% gray all the way up to 100% white. So it'll bring in just all those highlights from the star trails, and then you can do a fade on those star trails, which you see that I've done here, where these star trails start out a certain diameter, and as they go on, the tails kind of fade off. And that's a really easy thing to do. If you did 10 star trails, I'll just do it 10 to keep it simple for math. You would select each layer, right, and then the opacity, you leave the first one at 100, the ninth one at 90, 80, 70, 60, 50, 40, 30, 20, 10, and you get a gradual, gradation of the star trails fading, either going, down in the sky or having them go up into the sky, whichever you prefer. It's completely up to your artistic preference how you want the star trails to go. And, if you have 200, right, you can do it a little bit differently. You'll have, select the first 2 images and make that 100, and then the next 2, 99, and then 98, 97, 96, 95, 94, 93, 92, 91, 90, right? You do, 100 increments over 2 sets of photos, that's 200, and, there you go. You've got a big fade over 200 stars. You do have to do a little bit of math. Sometimes you have weird numbers, or you might have to do the first 10 at 100 and then get down to an even number to work with, or something that's easier to work with, and, just figure it out from there. But that's really how you fade the star trails, and I think it looks a lot nicer than just leaving them all at 100%, although you could definitely do it. Again, it's personal preference. So that is everything behind the scenes on how to get to this point. Let's talk about everything that I did to this particular photo. So if we go here and we undo everything, you can see that this is, pretty much like I said here at the bottom. It says stars stacked, faded, and a little bit of Adobe Camera Raw adjustments to everything once it was all flattened. Now, another thing that I had to painfully learn is that you do not want to merge all of your 200 stars together, because that, for my computer, which is pretty powerful, made Photoshop almost unusable. So what you want to do is instead flatten the images, and that will give you a much smaller file to work with, instead of it being like a 30 gig file like it was with all those 16-bit TIFFs all in one document. So flatten the images, right? I found out the wrong way, so you guys don't have to. So flatten everything, And then, we faded the stars, a little Adobe Camera Raw, and flattened it all together. And then we did a little cleanup. So cleanup in star trails is something that, in this day and age, you're going to have to spend a lot of time on. If something you really, really care about, I would definitely take the time to go in and clean up all of these, little trails that go through our stars here. They could be satellites, shooting stars, airplanes, whatever it may be. I don't know what that is. If I'm being totally honest, I don't know what that little shine. I thought it was the Andromeda Galaxy, but it doesn't look like the Andromeda Galaxy. In fact, I don't even think Andromeda would be in that location, and I don't even think we'd be able to see it with the border that we were in, or the light pollution, on the other side of the lake there. And here, there must be an airport or something over here, because you can see all these lines of planes taking off and landing. More satellites here. So really spend a decent amount of time and do a good job on it the first time, right? So you don't have to come back and do it and clean up a lot of those things. And here there was a pair of Canadian geese that stayed the whole night here, and I did a base removal of them for now, and then I went back and did a better job at cleaning that up and making it look a little bit more uniform. If you didn't know it was there in the first place, you're not going to miss it once it's gone. And then there I basically did some color correction and some luminance correction. The first being in the blue channel. As you can see, one of the things I really like doing in Astro is, especially for star trails, is darkening the top of the sky as much as I can, and bringing that down, because as you look higher up into the sky typically gets darker. So I wanted to kind of do that. And then I just did a little gradient mask here, fading it in from the top down into the bottom where you don't have it anymore. Highlights. This was a super highlights, or I think it might have just been a general highlight, but as you can see, I did clamp the highlights quite a bit by using the Control-Shift-Alt in the highlight channel here. As you have several highlight layers, highlights 1, highlights 2. So we did that. Made those a little brighter. Green channel. This was just to pop the aurora out just a little bit more. And also doing so with some of the grasses there, and it's a very clamped green channel, so we're really just getting everything right there, not too much overlap. Highlights again. This was for the foreground. Yeah, as you can see, it's the gamma minus, so lowering the gamma in the foreground. That's just how I label things. It's important to label things, so if you come back to a file, you know what you did and why you did it, kind of, so to speak. And then more super highlights. This was, I think, to bring up the aurora a little bit. As you can see, this mask here just has a very faint brush over all of this here and some of those clouds. Clean up again, just to get rid of, again, fixing this here. Getting rid of, there was some weird, light lines on the ground here. I don't know if they're still here in this version on this layer, but there was some weird light trails, in the beach. I don't even know how to describe what it was, but it was just there. We got rid of some weird rocks though there that look like bricks, kind of got rid of those. Blue channel, and then here we did some blue reduction, which these rocks over here had this really weird reflection on it, and they looked just a little too crazy, so I ended up toning it down here with a little blue reduction. High pass filter pretty much over everything. Foreground fix. This was again because I felt like the foreground was a little too luminant and a little bit too dominant in the frame. So what I ended up doing was lowering the gamma in the foreground and also adding a little bit of cooling to the beach, because in nighttime you're gonna have cooler white balances. So ended up fixing that, and gamut correction here for print. The sky was just way too oversaturated for print. It would have been way out of gamut, so ended up dropping the saturation in that sky and some of those blues, and actually ended up liking the way it looks. So I've left it on for some of my, when I export the photo and share it, I left this on because I was like, it actually looks a little bit better with that saturation toned down a little bit, more of a natural color. Although if you like it more punchy and saturated, you can leave it like that. And then clean up again, ended up getting rid of that weird thing up there and some other hot pixels and things that I missed, because I had to go back a couple times, make sure I got everything. And then a signature. And that is pretty much everything that went into this. It was an incredible night, incredible experience. I cannot believe that we got lucky enough to photograph the aurora and have it you know, work in with this star trail shot so incredibly well. And I'm very, very happy with it. Very, very proud of this photo. And I like it quite a bit. If you guys have any questions on how star trails work, how to shoot them, building it in Photoshop, feel free to leave comments down in the comment section below. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you have not already. And as always, thank you for watching. I'll see you guys next time.